The Wheel of Time. This game is based on the fantasy series by James Oliver Rigney Jr., better known by his pen name Robert Jordan. The game was released onto retail shelves near the end of 1999 by Legend Entertainment as a first-person shooter. The game ran under the Unreal Engine, one of the more popular game engines to be licensed at the time. This allowed the game to have breathtaking visuals while still being able to run at a very rapid rate. Those who did not have the luxury of a powerful PC or a 3D accelerator card could still play the game with the settings turned down, and this would still look spectacular. In the single-player campaign, you take on the role of Elayna Sedai, the keeper of the Chronicles of the White Tower. You progress through the game in a standard level-by-level format, get from point A to point B, find a key if you have to. Very simple, very linear. With the game being a first-person shooter, obviously you need weapons. In this case, it's through the use of artifacts called ter'angreal. These are effectively your guns and ammo for the game, but they are much more than that. Many of these artifacts produce effects that deal no damage to an enemy, but they can also be used in conjunction with others to create devastating attacks that can also minimize damage to yourself. A Reflect ter'angreal will send an enemy's spells back at them while you pummel them with your own attacks. Chain Lightning allows you to engage multiple targets within a close proximity to you. For those swift, agile enemies, a Freeze ter'angreal will hold them in place and allow you to easily finish them off with Balefire. Of course, there are cruder ways of achieving the same thing. A barrage of Seeker, Decay, and Fireballs will inflict massive damage onto a target. The surrounding environment can affect these artifacts as well. Sending a Fireball into a pond will render it useless, while using Chain Lightning in a pool of water will damage everyone going for a swim, including yourself. Because you can only carry a limited amount of charges for each of these artifacts, there is more emphasis on combination attacks. Switching between different ter'angreal is very frequent, especially during encounters with an enemy. The result is that there's more strategy and execution involved in its usage. Sometimes the best form of attack is not one that does the most damage. You can use Whirlwind to send an enemy flying off a cliff as an alternative to conventional attacks. Some of them are not even used offensively. Your health and armor are replenished by using ter'angreal. If this gets too confusing, you can always read the descriptions of every new artifact you come upon at any time. Not only does the screen tell you what it does, but this also shows you its associated elements and a passage from the series where the artifact is being used. There is more so-called weapon switching in this game than in any other first-person shooter made to this day. This can lead to a higher difficulty and learning curve. Speaking of difficulty, let's talk about the enemies. Unlike in many other games where the monsters are more or less moving targets, the Wheel of Time's roster of enemies are here to kill you! They will try to dodge your attacks, and they succeed most of the time. When attacking from a distance, they actually predict your movements and aim their shots accordingly. They will hit you if you're not careful, and if they manage to get in close, it's hard to get away. Even on the easiest difficulty, they prove themselves to be a formidable foe. They make it almost impossible to play this game with a controller. Believe me, I tried, and I failed. You absolutely need a high level of control to stand a chance. Mice and keyboards only. As you have seen so far, the graphics are pretty good. It's easily one of the best attributes of the game, and this has a lot to do with the level design. Although the flow of each level was linear for the most part, it had some of the best architecture for any game of its time. There are some areas in the game where you would actually look around just to marvel at the scenery. That's how polished the graphics are. Of course, the Unreal Engine deserves some of the credit, with its ability to add in extra details to textures up close. The 3D models present themselves very well, which really makes you wonder how these models had so much detail back in 1999. Of course, visuals only tell half the story. The audio brings forth the other half, and the Wheel of Time delivers. Ambient sounds emanate throughout the environment, from the swamplands of the Blight to the cursed city of Shadar Logoth. Sound effects generated by the clashing of steel swords in ter'angreal do the job very well. While slightly adding to the game experience, I find that the music goes by unnoticed and can be a bit soft at times. The music in the game has a Celtic theme to it. This does fit perfectly in the Wheel of Time universe. The music is great, but you will find no memorable melodies here. No whistling tunes in the shower this time. But the best audio in the game is, no doubt, the voice acting. It is, for a lack of a better term, actually good.
Despite their animosity toward Aes Sedai, I had thought such barbarism beyond even the White Cloaks.
When a game is based off of an existing series, the general language and details of the characters have already been established. Rather than pulling random people off the street for the voiceovers, the developer is forced to use someone that can fit into the fictional world. And this pays off in the end.
I'm gonna be chasing after him inside of that cursed place.
Me? How am I supposed to handle an assassin and a regiment of Trollocs? I can't channel the one power more than a trickle.
The graphics, the gameplay, and the sound all come together to bring the world to life. The Wheel of Time was first unleashed to the public in 1990 in the form of a paperback novel. The first book was entitled The Eye of the World. The series draws from numerous elements of European and Asian mythology, resulting in its detailed fantasy world, its magic system that's explained in a scientific context, and its large cast of characters. Robert Jordan was consulted in the creation of the game, but he never wrote the storyline himself, and the game is not considered to be canon. He wrote 11 of the 12 books in the main series, but he passed away before he could finish them on September 16, 2007. He was diagnosed with cardiac amyloidosis, a disorder caused by deposits of an abnormal protein in the heart tissue. Before his death, he shared all of the significant plot details with his family so that the series could still finish in the way he intended. For the final book, his widow chose Brandon Sanderson to author them because of his work on the Mistborn series. The title of the book was called A Memory of Light, but the size and scope far exceeded expectations and forced the decision to split it into 3 parts: The Gathering Storm, Towers of Midnight, and the final book retains the original title, A Memory of Light. The Wheel of Time series is one of the best-selling book series of all time. The game? Not so much. The Wheel of Time was overshadowed by games like Unreal Tournament, Quake 3 Arena, and Half-Life. They had more publicity in game magazines and websites at the time, while The Wheel of Time only had a few game reviews, all of which gave top marks to the game. This even appeared in the number 10 spot on GameSpy's list of 25 most underrated games of all time. It just goes to show that advertising and hype is just as important for a game as the gameplay. You can't be interested in a game if you haven't heard of it, and if word of the game's existence does not reach the general public, that also affects the quality of multiplayer games due to a lack of players. If you play the multiplayer component of the Wheel of Time, you'll notice that the gameplay here is a standard deathmatch utilizing all of the artifacts in the game. Many combinations of ter'angreal will come into play here. Instead of roaming the map with a rocket launcher or railgun, you must constantly pick up different ter'angreal to lay traps, nullify attacks, and even disarm other players. The complexity of the deathmatch offers a higher level of play than the standard run-and-gun action of other first-person shooters. There is even a Citadel game mode, which is essentially capture the flag, but you have the ability to place spear traps, pitfalls, and other hazards as found in the single-player game to help you defend your base. Simply put, multiplayer is a lot of fun, but as with other first-person shooters, this fun diminishes with a lack of players. The demo even gave you a taste of this. It offered 2 multiplayer levels for you to try out, as well as 2 single-player levels from different parts of the story, so you knew exactly what you were getting into when you bought this game. The combination of a fantasy world populated with monsters and magic, and the game mechanics of a first-person shooter makes the Wheel of Time an awesome package for any PC gamer. The game offers something different to the first-person shooter genre, and the challenge it presents encourages you to keep getting better. If you ever find a copy of this game on a store shelf, or as a digital download, buy this immediately and play it. Otherwise, this will just be one of the best games you will have never played.